We have all experienced the occasional oversleep. Hitting that snooze button one too many times, succumbing to a weekend sleep in. However, for survivors of trauma, oversleeping can become a chronic response, significantly impacting our daily life. In this episode, I'm going to explore oversleeping as a symptom of trauma, explaining its causes, negative consequences, and strategies for managing it. Last month I talked about restlessness, which can result in sleeplessness. So let's explore the opposite side of that coin today. I've been sleeping a little bit better, maybe too much better. Trauma disrupts the delicate balance of the sleep-wake cycle. This can manifest in several different ways. Hypervigilance, constant state of alertness often associated with trauma, can make it challenging to quiet the mind and fall asleep. Chrysantha and I went into deep detail on hypervigilance back in season 1, episode 18. If you need more on what that looks like or what it is, it was actually a pretty funny episode. Traumatic memories can intrude on your sleep, leading to nightmares and frequent waking during the night. Again, Chrysantha and I went into a lot more detail on nightmares as a trauma response in season 1, episode 23. Then there's dissociation, which is a mental process of detachment from thoughts, feelings, and sensations. It's not what some of us might refer to as multiple personalities, and it's important to know the difference. Dissociation is when your mind wanders into another area because it doesn't want to be where it is, whether you realize it or not. Dissociation can disrupt your sleep patterns by creating gaps in your memory, even of sleep experiences. But how do these things connect to oversleeping? While some people with trauma might experience difficulty sleeping, others might oversleep excessively. And still others might oversleep in the mornings because of their difficulty falling or staying asleep at night. That's definitely. So why do some trauma survivors oversleep though? Well, we deal with nightmares and stuff like that. Wouldn't we want to avoid sleep as much as possible? Well, not necessarily. While oversleeping can be seen as a paradoxical response, it still serves a purpose in the context of a traumatized body. Sleep can act as a form of emotional numbing, providing a temporary escape from overwhelming thoughts and feelings associated with trauma. The constant state of hyperarousal caused by trauma depletes energy reserves, leaving us with little to no spoons left. If you're not familiar with the spoon theory, I'll leave a link to that in the show notes. Oversleeping can be the body's attempt to conserve energy for potential future threats. Excessive sleep can be a form of dissociation, which allows the person to detach from the present moment and avoid confronting the trauma or the traumatic memories. But what's the difference between regular oversleeping and oversleeping as a trauma response? Well, regular oversleeping happens infrequently and doesn't significantly impact. Goodness, let me try that sentence again. Regular oversleeping happens infrequently, and it doesn't significantly impact your daily life. It can be caused by the late nights, social activities, hanging out with your friends too late, changes in your sleep schedule, like a new shift on a job. Usually someone who just oversleeps without it being a response to trauma is going to feel refreshed and energized when they wake up. But oversleeping as a trauma response is chronic. It happens frequently. It causes difficulty fulfilling daily obligations. It's caused by unresolved trauma leading to emotional exhaustion and dissociation. After someone who's dealing with oversleeping as a trauma response wakes up, they feel unrefreshed, groggy, and with a lingering sense of fatigue. There are some warning signs of oversleeping as a trauma response that more people need to be aware of, too. We see oversleeping patterns often in teen years, but is that just a kid needing more rest as they grow? or is it a response to trauma? So what are the warning signs that someone should be watching for? Regular oversleeping, well, regularly sleeping significantly longer than the recommended 7 to 8 hours per night, even on the weekends, without feeling refreshed is definitely a big warning sign. Growth spurts happen, yes, but they're called spurts for a reason. They don't tend to stick around for months at a time. Oversleeping can interfere with taking care of basic responsibilities like personal hygiene, household chores, or even attending appointments. Oversleeping can exacerbate symptoms of depression and anxiety, leading to feelings of hopelessness, irritability, and low self-esteem. Another warning is difficulty waking up. So when somebody sleeps for a long time, despite sleeping for this extended period, if someone is feeling tired and experiencing difficulty getting out of bed, this is a pretty bad sign. It's probably a little bit more than just depression, unfortunately. Excessive sleepiness throughout the day that impacts your work, your school, your social activities is a key warning also. Some kids just don't like school. Some adults just hate work. But when it starts to impact things that someone enjoys, that's an especially bad sign. Feeling emotionally disconnected and unable to experience joy or excitement is a warning sign for trauma, even if it's not connected to oversleeping. Keep your eyes open for that one. Using sleep as a way to avoid dealing with difficult emotions or memories is like a big neon sign hanging over the headboard, pointing at your pillow, blasting brightly that, hey, there's an issue. Chronic oversleeping can have an significant impact on various aspects of life beyond what was just discussed, too. If you start suffering in your academic or work performance, you'll start to notice difficulty concentrating, missing deadlines, decreasing productivity. Oversleeping can worsen the symptoms of these depression, anxiety, and PTSD, of course. And sleep disturbances, including oversleeping, can disrupt the production of neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, which regulate mood and motivation. This can worsen the feelings of depression and anhedonia, which is the inability to experience pleasure or happiness. Chronic oversleeping can also lead to elevated cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone. High cortisol is associated with increased anxiety and difficulty coping with stress. Chronic oversleeping can lead to an increased risk of weight gain, chronic health conditions like diabetes and heart disease, and a weakened immune system. Eventually, your immune system might start to attack itself, and that's when you develop an autoimmune disease. So how do we deal with it? Well, addressing oversleeping as a trauma response requires a multifaceted approach. Trauma-informed therapy is always helpful, but also consider your sleep hygiene. Implementing healthy sleep habits like establishing a regular sleep schedule, creating a relaxing bedtime routine, and optimizing the sleep environment can improve your sleep quality. So exposure to bright light in the mornings can help to regulate the sleep-wake cycle, especially for those struggling with delayed sleep phase syndrome, which is a sleep disorder that causes people to have trouble falling asleep and waking up at a normal time, usually 2 or more hours later than usual. Regular physical activity can help to improve sleep quality, but it's important to avoid strenuous exercise close to bedtime. An elevated heart rate can make it difficult to calm down and fall asleep. If you can, also, it can also leave you dehydrated. Exercise releases stress hormones in your body, making you feel more alert. The bright lights at the gym and the stress hormones together stop melatonin from being naturally produced in your brain. It's important to note that these signs can also be associated with other sleep disorders or mental health conditions. If you suspect that someone might be experiencing oversleeping as a trauma response, it's crucial to encourage them to seek professional help from a therapist or healthcare provider who can conduct a comprehensive evaluation and develop an appropriate treatment plan for them. Oversleeping can strain relationships with loved ones. Open communication and understanding from family and friends can be a source of support for healing. By recognizing the warning signs and seeking professional help, people who have oversleeping as a trauma response can break this cycle, improve their sleep quality, and live a much more fulfilling life. Make sure you come back next month on September 24th when I start a 3-part series on triggers. That'll be fun.